Well, hello there. Good evening, laddies, lasses, and lasses. I'm just kidding. That's the Clicks intro, but I thought it was funny. Okay, so this is my comic of Jeremiah story. So as you know, I'm writing a book about Jeremiah, and so far the title's just Jeremiah's Story, or Story of Jeremiah, which I know is not very creative, but I can't think of a better title because the story is about Jeremiah, so may as well be called that. So this is like sort of the beginning where he comes down into the... So he's basically, the bio is he's a rich lord of the manor. He's the son of the main lord of the manor, but he's like, you know, the son. So he's like the spoilt brat who never works. And he's really charming, and, you know, the ladies and even the men love him. The servants, they'd heard like lots about him. And for the first time he came down to like visit the servants, and they got to meet him in person. They'd never met him before. This is not the first time he's come downstairs. So he's like at the servants' hall where the table and chairs is. He just plonks himself down and just has a smoke. And the servants come and start talking to him and giving him food and stuff. And he just charms them with his stories, and he asks how they are and stuff. He's like dead charming. And he acts like a, you know, like a people person, if that makes sense. You know, like your man's man. You're like, you know, you might be rich and stuff, but you're like, oh, I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to the servants and everything. So he's like that, but he's really whatever. Okay, so that was the 3rd of September. So I did Jeremiah a reboot. So now he looks like that. He's got a long nose instead of a short one, and he looks more sly rather than like sweet and cute and cuddly. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to read the story thing. When Daisy first saw the lord of the house, Jeremiah, she became instantly smitten because of his good looks and golden blonde hair. Also, the knowledge that he was rich didn't hurt either. So that's the scullery maid Daisy. I didn't do her tail. Oopsie daisy. There you go. So she's got a bow on the back as well. Sorry, it's rubbish. She's got a bow on the back there. Okay, so that's number 1. So every time she meets the lord of the manor, he basically comes in and he talks to everyone, and she doesn't get to talk to him because she's too shy and she doesn't know what to say to him to strike up a conversation. And usually everybody else keeps his attention, especially the cook who gives him cookies and stuff. So she decides to hatch a plan of how she can be alone with him, but her adoptive mother does not really like it very much. Daisy wanted an excuse to see the lord of the manor, Jeremiah, and to be alone with him, so she convinces the cook to let her take him up his breakfast at that morning. Cook was not happy about it because she was a scullery maid, but she eventually agreed to it if it would make her happy. So decided she's going to be called, I've forgotten the name now! Oh, crap. We just call her the cook at the moment. It's supposed to be like a sort of spin-off of Downton Abbey with Jeremiah, though, as the Lord of the Manor. But I'll rename the characters, but I'm keeping Daisy, though. But she's like based off of Mrs. Patmore. I've forgotten her name now. Philpott, that's it. She's called Mrs. Philpott. Okay. So I'm probably doing this all wrong. Yep, wrong way. Okay, so she comes into his room and we see the angle from like the headboard or whatever. She's like just like face down in the pillows. Zzz. The next one, of course, is on the back of the page. Oh, stop it. So he wakes up because he hears someone in his bedroom. So she's like, they're putting the thing on the thing. The food on the thing. Look at him, he's like all cross-eyed and shit. When he stirs from his sleep, she chickened out, left the food and hid outside the door. So she chickened out. I'm doing it. Thank God, I've no clue. Here we go. So that's her outside the door. She looks quite tall there, but she's not supposed to look that tall. And he finally like comes to a bit more and says, "Who is there? Show yourself," because he can hear people. Even though he's not facing that way, he somehow knows that she's hidden. Ugh, I know, logic, plot holes and shit. Oh well, doesn't matter. So he turns around and that's the view you get. And what's your name? So it's supposed to be, who's there? So he says, who's there? Show yourself. So she said, just a maid. And then he asks, and what's your name? And then she says, it's Daisy. So that's how that works. Now I've coloured this picture in on the computer, so it looks even better. But I forgot to put the dialogue, so I'll be doing that. And he's like, oh, well, we've just met, but can I interest you in coming in my bed with me? Pat, pat. And sharing my food, pretty much. He says, well, don't come in the bed. So initially she sits on the bed fully dressed. And he says, might be more comfortable if you take your dress off, baby. And she's like naive, so she just does it. But it doesn't feel right. And then he says, wouldn't it be more comfortable without your corset as well? So she takes that off. And then they're sat in bed together. So he invites her to eat with him, pretty much. And you've got to imagine there's like a tray of food here. I didn't draw it because it would just be awkward. And then you see them from the side sat in bed, and he like touches her knee and her thigh. Why don't you lay back and get more comfy, he says, because she sat up, I mean. He's got like that's supposed to be orange juice. So like the tray of food's there. I didn't really bother with detail. I know, I'm not really interested in doing surroundings. I'm more interested in doing the characters. I know it might be lazy, but oh well, that's how I do things. It's to save time because there's lots of comics to get through. This is more than I bargained for. So he pretty much turns over onto her, and he's not really on top of her, just the top half of him is. So she's not really hating it, but she's a bit shocked. That's better. So it skips a bit there. He pretty much strokes her leg first, and they eat a little bit. And then so basically the scene is when she lays back, he puts his drink down and the toast down, and then does that. So it skipped a bit in the comic, again to save time, but in the animation it'll have the full thing. And I think that's where that ends. And then, yeah, so that's that. And then the part 2 is coming up with the next bit. So, yes. So that'll be the end of this video. So this is part 1, part 2 coming up.